Good morning, CEO Chicks. Welcome to our Wednesday Masterclass. I am Coach Kristina with the CEO Chicks, or better known as the Money Coach, of course, a licensed financial advisor. And I'm very excited because we have an amazing guest today. So I have roped my husband into joining us this morning. And, the thing is, when we talk about marriage and money, this is always a hot topic, honestly. This is a topic that many people want to communicate together about. And so I really wanted to bring my own spouse on here because, we've been married a year. We're in the trials and tribulations of working together. We've done it different ways before. And so I really wanted to take a moment to really share with you guys this morning and hopefully impart some good information to you. So I'm going to just kind of start this morning. I'm going to ask, I'm going to share a little bit about me for those of you who may be new to CEO Chicks, or maybe you've been here for a while and you don't know me. And then I'm going to ask my husband to share a little bit about his background, and then we're going to just jump right on into some questions. I do want you to be able to ask questions and us answer them on this chat this morning. So if you have a question and you want to raise your hand or you want to drop it in the meeting chat, you absolutely can, and we will answer your questions this morning. So just a little bit about me for a moment. So many of you, like I said, we've been in the CEO Chicks here for a while. And I, of course, have been married before. This is my second marriage. I've been engaged. I've lost someone. I've had a child pass away. There's so many different factors of just financial things that have happened to me over, let's say, the last 10 to 15 years. And so, I think about not only how did I grow up learning about money, but what are some major things that happened to me over this last 10 years that also affected me when it came to money. And so we're going to share a little bit about that today. Husband, I want you to introduce yourself, if you don't mind, and just share a little bit about your own background.
Well, most of you might already know I'm from the islands. Grew up there, come from a pastor's home. So there wasn't really much, information on finances. All we knew that was taught to us was take your 10% out and pay your tithes. And I remember growing up, when I got my first job, my mom was like, well, you're going to help out with the groceries. So you're going to give me at least $200 every month. So it really wasn't much said. It was just more of trying to teach us to be responsible. It really wasn't more in depth, teaching us anything of just being in depth on how to manage your finances, but just, hey, pay your tithes and give to the Lord and be responsible with your money. That's pretty much it.
Did any of that change, or did you learn anything as you kind of got into your adult life?
Definitely, it taught me to have really high work ethic as far when it comes to money, to at least to how to manage your money in that way. Mm-hmm. But that was it really. All I know now is you have to save.
Yeah,
you absolutely have to have cash on and to save your money.
Have to.
But not to invest in anything and stuff like that. But
absolutely. And we're going to jump into those discussions today. And so my husband, Jesse, just so you know, he doesn't fake. So he's not going to come on here and tell the loving way Kristina would love him to tell it. He's about to tell you the truth.
That's embarrassing.
So that's all right with me. I told him, please come as you are. This is how we leave the house every morning. I'm usually in a suit. He runs a successful painting company, but he's usually checking on projects throughout the day. And so I just wanted him to be real. I didn't want it. I just want you to be honest. We've disagreed, we've agreed, we've had a lot of discussions about money over this last year, but I know that as we have these discussions, many people are having these communication discussions about money. So here's why I really wanted to jump into this topic today about marriage and money. Number one is that, unfortunately, here in the United States, about 40 to 50% of divorces end in marriage. And the truth of the matter is, one of the number one reasons that happens is because of finances. Usually one or two on the list is the reason that people file for divorce. And then again, I told you for both of us, this is our second marriage. 60 to 70% of second marriages end in divorce. Now, we have agreed that we are going to beat the odds, right? Absolutely. There's no divorce happening here. That's not in our vocabulary. But we really knew up front we needed to make sure we were having open communication about everything. My husband has been very adamant about that from day one, about us just talking about everything. But really, money is my area, right? I think I know everything in regards to money, but I also needed somebody to lead me strongly in that area. So I want to start just with all of you, and I want you all to think about this for a second, but I'm going to talk to my husband here about this. We first learn money growing up, right? We first learn about money and how to utilize it. Most of the time that comes from our parents. And so in my household growing up, I grew up in a middle-class family. I am mixed with Black and white. So I really got two different sides of how money is handled. To be honest, we didn't talk a lot about money. I didn't necessarily think we had any money struggles. We just, if I needed something, it happened. And I really didn't ask many questions beyond that. The truth is, it wasn't until, and I see some other people joining on. Thank you. So Tony's jumping in. It wasn't until my mother passed away unexpectedly before my father that I realized that even my parents didn't communicate well about money. And so, and here's why I say that. My dad said to me, listen, if I went to the ATM and money came out, I was okay. Your mom handled the finances. I have no idea what is going on. And that kind of shocked me because my dad was the breadwinner in the family. So there, I knew my mother handled the money, but my dad clearly made more than her. But there was no discussion around that. And the fact that he didn't even realize what was in our bank account or what debt they had or any of those sort of things. Oh, it was yeah. So that was my experience with money. I really learned a lot about money habits from taking courses or classes, or become a financial advisor definitely teaches you a lot. But I didn't necessarily learn it at home. And I feel like even in my extended family, it's always a hush-hush conversation. Share your experience a little bit. How did you learn about money? I mean, you said your mom and dad, basically, here's your money, you got to tithe. You're from the islands, and again,
being from the islands is different culture. How you grew up there is different to how you grew up in the States. So it's like a trial and error kind of thing. And I think what helped me, maturing into a man when it comes to finances, because I made a lot of mistakes. You spend, you overspend, you take money and you just blow it out. And we've all been through that. But it comes to a time when you have to take responsibility. And I think because of what they taught me and the blessings I saw in giving and me receiving it, I think that's when it became really serious in terms of, hey, you know what? I need to set aside, because the Bible says you have to be good stewards over the things that we manage, whether it's your house, your finances, all throughout scripture talks about being good stewards, right? So I think with that, reading the word of God and trying to apply it as much as I can helped me a bit.
Right.
So,
and I know this is where we kind of talk like, you were taught more along the lines of, tithe, help the household, those sort of things, where I was more along the lines of, okay, well, there's other things besides just tithing and helping the household. We need to plan for our future, save, those sort of things, which we're going to jump into. So again, get your questions ready. We've been nice so far, but it's about to get real. Okay? So we wanted to kind of give you a little background as far as where both of us came from, because we have two very different perspectives on how we deal with money. And I'm going to say, in most marriages, That's exactly what happens. You two grew up differently. So you have two very different ideas of how to handle money in your household. So I didn't bring our boxing gloves today, so I'm going to ask that you be easy on me.
Well, it's Tony on me because I have Tony to help me.
Tony's on
I
here.
have Tony's here, and Tony's gonna. I know I got his back, and he has my back.
So, and if your spouse is on, please introduce them in the chat. We want to make sure that everybody is there and able. So again, we're not perfect. Like we've been married a year. We celebrated our 1-year anniversary the last week of January. We're exploring, we are learning about each other, but I think we're doing it in a much better, stronger, and healthier way than we did before. So let's start with this question, okay? So household finances come together, and this is always a big question that I get, is that how do you handle your household finances? Like, do you combine money? Do you have separate accounts? Should the wife keep a secret account?
Yeah.
Hint, hint. No, I'm just kidding. Don't take that to right. But how would you answer that question? And then I'll say from my perspective as an advisor, but you tell me, how do you think marriages should handle money?
Well, so this is where it really comes down to. I mean, so here's the thing. It doesn't matter how many Dave Ramsey seminars we go to, how many books we read on finances. All of that is great, but it comes down to you communicating with your spouse, because it's an ongoing process.
Yes.
You know, life is unpredictable. Things happen, and you have to make decisions right on the spot. And so sometimes, just like sometimes with me, sometimes I may not make the right decision right on spot, and sometimes that will bring arguments. It will bring disagreements. Hey, you didn't do this, the right way. Hey, you didn't, but I didn't have a chance to really communicate with you. So how do we deal with that? And that's where it comes down to, hey, where the rubber meets the road, and how you deal with it there is very important. And even with us, you being a financial advisor, we still have disagreements. We are definitely not perfect in that area. I get upset with you sometimes with how you handle, the money. I mean, but I think as we continue to talk about the root problem and how we can overcome them, that's a start right there.
Yeah.
So let's start with that.
And we've agreed that communication is honestly the root issue. It's not about necessarily the money. It's the root issue. To be honest, we both have thriving businesses, right? We, in our businesses, what I love is that it is very different, right? There are some months you make more than me. There are some months I make more than him. We're going to talk about that. Okay. His business is very cyclical, meaning, there's times of the year where it does extremely well. And then there's times of the year where it's definitely slower. My business, of course, I'm in the stock market. So again, you guys all know what happened to the stock market last year. Again, those are long-term strategies. And so there is definitely a difference in that. But one of the big things that we agreed on right from the beginning is that we were going to have a joint account. That was going to be our money, our account that we put money in together to pay bills. We each do have a small separate account. However, we are on each other's accounts. Okay. So there's no hiding it. God forbid, if I needed to access yours or you needed to access mine, it's definitely there. We do it mainly for if we want to do gifts for each other or those sort of things. But then here's really where our contention, our arguments come in. So I'm definitely a saver, but I also want to invest. I have a 401k. I'm a partner. So there's a partnership account. There's all these little buckets of money, right? And sometimes my husband's like, I don't know where the money is.
I don't.
and he honestly has to trust me with that to some extent, even though he has full access to all of them, right? But how do you, and I want to start here because I feel like, and ladies, listen to me clearly, right? Many of us are making a good amount of money, right? I want to be seen not only as your wife, but somewhat as your equal, even though biblically I am supposed to honor and respect you, right? And so, but there are times where I make more than you, and I've done this on my own for a long time. I want to say that loudly, right? And so, it's easy for me sometimes to make a decision, and if I forget to ask him. I don't say I forget. It's not that I purposely don't ask him, but it is a decision I probably should have asked him about because I've done it for so long. So guess what? If I want to take $1,000 and spend it on this, okay, and maybe that's a new purse for me or something like that. You know, I'm making those decisions and then I'm like, oh, but wait a second, I'm married now. And I'm not, you know, so I want to talk about that because, you know, men sometimes, and again, this is our fault too, women. I don't want to just put it on the men. I don't want you to ever feel demasculated or me to feel like I can't make a decision on money because you're my husband. But how do you overcome that?
Well, sometimes we do feel demasculated because in many cases, when spouses, the woman makes more money than the man. And how do you deal with that as a man? And so, you know, this is a broad topic, and this is why I want Tony to come in and help me with that.
Tony joined us.
Yeah, those are my guys. So they're gonna chime in on this. And so for us as men, and as Tony and Eric joins, and there you go, bro. I'm not seeing Tony yet, but
I'm here.
But as men, you know, in that case where the wives make more money than the man, first of all, it's not to compete. It's not a competition.
Right.
All right. But here because I know a lot of couples that got a divorce over this. It's a huge issue.
Yeah.
And it's the belittling and, hey, you're not stepping up to the plate. And the minute you start disrespecting and your husband and start bringing him down, not trying to build him up, that's where the problem is. Mm-hmm. And so it creates confusion. It creates, hey, you know, for us men, all right, well, my wife is bringing me down. She's making me feel less than, and it just goes downhill from there. But on the flip side of that, I know there's men, we don't step up. We're not trying to really, you know, grow our business. We're stuck. All right. So I know it's on the both sides of the spectrum, right? But it's not a competition. We're a team, and it all depends on how sometimes you guys make us feel. You make us feel like we're a superhero. Hey, you know what? You're not making as much money as I am, but you're still in charge of making the final decision. You're the man, you know.
Yeah.
Boost us up. Give us some ego boost. And that's where it is. Don't bring us down because it's just going to go downhill from there. But that's just a light thing that I'm seeing on that.
Tony, Eric, feel free to put your comments in the chat or chime in there. But really, I think that's what it comes down to. You know, you had to talk to me about this in the beginning, and it was a hard conversation, right? I am very independent. I am so used to doing things my own way. I mean, yes, I see you shaking your head, Eric. But I am so used to it, right? And I had to humble myself as his wife because I am his wife. It's God, and then I'm his wife. And I had to humble myself to say, you are the head of our household. And guess what? There are decisions that we have had to make. Tony said, I've never have a problem with my wife making more money than me. Amen. You picked Miles Monroe used to say, you picked the right horse, right? You picked that woman, and she really wants to do that. And so, Eric, you wanted to say something?
Okay. Yes. Yeah, I did. Good morning, everyone. And shout out to everybody that's on here and to my family that's on here, Colleen, Jesse and Christina, Tony. I have to say, I had to grow to the comment that Tony just made, because I had a huge problem with it because my wife is in sales. So, and I'm not. So you have to consider the industries in which we work. So realistically, I think maybe 1 year, we've been married for 18 years. And I think 1 year that I made more than her. So I had to look at myself and consider kind of traditional gender roles that are presented in our society, and how we're raised as men. You know, you're supposed to be the protector, the provider, the priest, but how am I providing when she makes more than me?
Exactly.
And so you have to get past, that's when your foundation in Christ comes in. So I'm like, okay, is this truly a partnership? One of the things that has stuck with me since I heard this, and it wasn't about a marriage, it was about a friendship. When we first met Tony and Colleen, Colleen said, we're not looking for new friends. We're looking for people that like we can grow together with, and that we're on assignment with. And that's really how you should look at that's how you should look at all of your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how is this mutually beneficial?
Amen.
And in your marriage, you are growing together. This is a partnership. And as the wife, are you submitting to your husband? Husband, are you leading? Are you willing to listen and partner with your wife? And if that's the case, then it's not hard to be like what Tony said, to not have a problem. And
Right.
one of the things that helped me overcome that is just the way my wife approaches it. You know, making decisions together.
Yes.
Babe, what do you think? You know, let's look at the bills. Let me know your thoughts on it. What would you like to do? And allowing, as Jesse mentioned, allowing me to lead. And you know what I'm saying? Because I've tried to be in sales, and that's not for me.
Yeah, so he doesn't love it either, right?
So unless I hit the lottery, or I have a come up, which, you know, I'm constantly working at, I'm not going to be there, and I'm not going to continually strive to make more than my wife, because this is a partnership, like, and it's not a competition, as you mentioned. But I agree with you with what both of you all are saying. It's from both sides of it. Husbands have to play an active role and to communicate and put your ego aside. And wives, if you're making more than your husband, let him lead. Let him, as long as he's being led by Christ.
Led by God. You're right. Sometimes you do have to pull that in. Correct.
Right. So as long as he's doing what he's supposed to do, and he's taking care of your household the way it's supposed to be taken care of, and your children, then there shouldn't be any problem letting him lead. You know, follow him as he's following Christ. So that's my little input for that.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
And listen, you know, I know there's several husbands on here with their spouses. Please feel free to jump on camera. We want to, you know, this is an open conversation. This is why we came here today. It is not just about Kristina and Jesse. We're giving you some insight, but we haven't always agreed. I mean, we made our first big purchase together last year, right? We bought our first home together. I have investment properties from before our marriage. You know, Jesse has a property from before his marriage. I mean, there's definitely things, but here's one of those discussions where I really had to let you lead, and I was not happy about it. Okay? Let me just be honest in this discussion. Okay. So we bought our house last year, you know. Here's the thing, and I think that this is it just comes with time. And hey, you know what? We're making this. Now we have two income household, and it's not just me. And hey, let's go out and buy a bigger house and a better house. And you know, my husband had to say, wait, hold up a second. You know, our kids are getting older. They're leaving the house. Do we need a 5 or 6 bedroom home? We don't necessarily need that. And then, you know, we're going to be traveling a lot and doing these sort of things. I think we should pull back and buy something that is a little bit smaller now, but ultimately something that's still very nice and those sort of things. And we did not agree. And my husband had to tell me multiple times to pray about it. So, but here's my question. And realistically, when we were making that decision, I didn't handle it always the best, but you still handled it with love, which I appreciate very much. For men that's on the call, and even for women who maybe have men that aren't leading per se, how do you get that point across? I mean, we had to make a decision. We needed a house, but I was adamant to go one way and you were adamant to go the other.
Yeah, thanks to Colleen and Tony that helped us, you know, with this house. I mean, so this decision wasn't, oh, well, I'm the man and I'm trying to show you this is the house that we're going to get. I didn't, because in my previous marriage, I tried it that way and it didn't work. So I had to try something new.
Fortunately, we've learned by trial and error.
So I told God, I said, this has to be a God thing. I want her to see that you are in this. That was my prayer, because the Bible says in all your ways acknowledge him, right? And I think as basic as that scripture may sound, we don't do it. We don't acknowledge God in anything at all sometimes. And I was very intentional about, hey, you know what, God, please just show my wife and let us be on the same page. And because you're a numbers person, right? And with Tony and Coney, we all did the math, right?
Yeah.
And it worked out. And this house, I was like, let her feel a peace. That I want to, Lord, let's just be peaceful.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we both felt.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't trying to come from a place of, well, I'm the man and I want to show you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I took a different approach. I was like, it has to be God. I want this to be a God thing. And that's what it is.
And this is really where I knew my husband could lead and I could trust him. So, he prayed those prayers, but it wasn't just about that. God just started showing out. I mean, it was during really the height of the real estate market. Houses were like flying off of the shelf, if I could say it that way. And God took this house that we wanted, not only in an environment where people were just paying cash, reduced the house price, and winded up honestly in a way better deal than we probably could have imagined with the other house that I wanted. And there was some back and forth, and my big thing was I wanted a pool, and so he promised me, hey, well, after the first year we'll put a pool in the house and those sort of things. But what I learned is that for me, I know he can lead. I know I can trust him. It is a partnership, right? I love that you're putting out. Like it is a partnership here.
But that comes from a lot of mistakes, though, in marriages.
Yes.
You have to have patience with your spouse. So I've made a lot of mistakes, and you have had the patience with me and give me that room to grow. You know what I mean? The biggest thing is not beating down on your spouse. It's
right.
Just pushing them up. And
Lifting them up.
I think that's where it's at.
So I want to get into some how-tos for just a second here, because, we all have monthly budgets, right? We all have ways. And then again, I'm in sales. My husband is, even though he doesn't love the sales, he does have a sales business with his painting company. Our income fluctuates, meaning every month it's not exactly the same. And this is where we had to come together on a budget. Nobody loves that word, right? But I really like to call it the way we're going to live life. And so I think you initially were shocked by the size of our budget when I put it together for us. Because again, I add in everything, gifts we're going to do and this and that. And so, but here's the thing, when we have to make a decision about purchasing something, we came together and agreed, hey, if it is over, our number is 500. Your number could be whatever you want in your household. If it is over that amount, we need to discuss it because it's going to impede upon our budget. Okay. And so how did you feel about that? Because it's almost like I have to ask you for permission if I'm going to spend money over 500, and you have to ask me for permission. And that's sometimes where I feel like the discord comes into play, because I'm now asking. Now I feel free to ask your permission, like, hey, we need this, and you've told me no, and I haven't liked it, and I'm a salesperson, so I try to persuade him. And you like to call it, don't put your financial advisor sales on me, because I am persuasive. But how do you? Again, let's just talk about that for a second. We're asking for each other's permission to spend money that we made. How do you deal with that?
Right. It's just, so it's not so much the permission part of it. It's just more communicating and does this make sense? Is it how much is going to affect our savings? Does it really worth it? Spending, money on this particular thing. Like right now, you want a pool. I'm telling you, go to the community pool right around the corner. I don't care. But with a pool. So it all becomes on our personalities, right? I'm more like a laid back kind of guy. I'm very easygoing. Yeah. I'm not trying to live up to the Joneses. That's not my goal in life, right? Yeah. So, and you are more outgoing, you want a pool, you're excited and that type of stuff. But it's just really coming in the middle and trying to say, hey, does this make sense? It's basic as that, I would say.
And again, we're going to go back to communication here, guys. there's an accountability. I love Pastor Eric said that, there's a accountability factor to each other. I'm accountable to my husband's accountable to me, and we have to be able to talk and communicate on those lines. And I see we've got some other men jumped in. Hey, Tyreek, nice to see you. Definitely, we really, Tyreek has some thoughts that he wants to share whenever you're ready. Oh, Tyreek, we are going to be absolutely. Let's jump there, Tyreek. I'm going to you can open up your mic, just unmute yourself, and Tyreek, feel free to jump in there. This is the Hope Dr. Tahira. This is her husband here. Can you unmute yourself?
Says that I'm up.
There we go. There we go. I can hear you now. Go right ahead.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me on. Definitely when it comes to finances, like you guys said, it's accountability. Me and my wife, we work really as a team, definitely she takes my lead, but if she has ideas when it comes to the finances, things that are going to help us grow as a unit and as a family, I listen to her. So it's not like, hey, I'm the man, you always got to follow my rules, but it's like, what ideas you best idea wins. My idea, that's pretty much how we've been, going back and forth and continue to get better and better and better. So understanding that we are a team in our relationship and in our finances, that's what's really working for us.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Tyreek. You're a team, and again, husbands and wives, y'all got to work together. It's got to be a discussion. It doesn't matter who makes more. It doesn't matter who really, we have agreed that Jesse is the final decision in our household, but we do have discussions about it. And I do feel like my voice is heard. He tells me no sometimes, and it hurts. There was a trip I wanted to go on in March, and he was like, no, that's not. But he was being, he was very real about, hey, these are the things that you said you wanted to do this year. If you do these things too, that is going to cut into that. And so again, I had to step back and agree with him because he's right. And I haven't had that person to bounce it off to sometimes. And here's what I want to talk about just a little bit more. I want to dive a little bit into savings and investing and those sort of things. And the reason I want to kind of go there for a second, because we had very different, I was a financial advisor. So I do save, and I always make sure we have 3 to 6 months savings aside, those sort of things. But everything above that, I'm ready to invest it. I want to put it in the stock market. I want to buy a house. I want to do something else with it. And you are definitely much more of my husband's actually a better saver than me, if you can believe that. He is much more of a penny pincher than I am. And he likes to have a lot more money in savings than my comfort level, meaning I want 3 to 6 months. He really wants like a year to 2 years of our income in savings. And talk a little bit about that, because we did have to come to an agreement and raise our savings number because you want to be able to see it. And talk a little bit about that. Like, what was your thought process around we need to be there?
Well, as couples, we have strong points and weaknesses. Investing is not my thing. That's your thing, and I recognize that. My safety net is more trying to grow our savings so I can have access to that in case of an emergency. That's just basically where it comes from. But that's your strong point in investing. I have to now trust you. Hey, this is your gifting, and as your husband, I have to trust you and into where you're going to put our money together. And sometimes it is a risk. Sometimes it is. I'm not sure about it.
Lost us money.
You did, and
that happens.
It happens, but that's where it's at. It's really just coming in the middle and just saying, hey, you know what? I recognize this is your strong point, honey, and let's just try to, I'll give you a chance in that, and just recognizing each other's giftings.
Yeah. Right. And I had to pull back on that a little bit. Like I said, I like to invest anything that was over 6 months, but I knew my husband wanted 2 years of income and savings. And so I had to step back and say, okay, there is a comfort level that each of us have. And it's okay for me to have a little bit more in savings. That's not going to hurt us, right? And that's the security that he needs. And then I have the security I need, and trusting that that's there and available. So again, goes back, we've said it a million times, goes back to communication. Next thing I want to touch base on, I know we've got about, well, we're still good on time. So we've still got about 20, 25 minutes. And I want to leave some time at the end to answer some questions. So I definitely want to have that open and available. This was a discussion that you didn't want to have. Okay. So many of you know my history. You know, I've lost a fiance that passed away. I've had several deaths in my family over the last 10 years. In the islands, per se, they don't necessarily talk about death or what we're going to do with things until somebody dies. Okay. And I was very adamant that we wanted to have this discussion up front. I wanted to make sure we had life insurance. I wanted to make sure that we had a will in place and those sort of things, and pretty much immediately from our marriage. But that was not something that you were necessarily comfortable with because, again, we came from two different backgrounds. But you know, in the States, I mean, and I had to deal with my parents' estate, right? I know that if we don't have this discussion, that two things are going to happen. It's either going to go to taxes or it's going to go to the courts, okay? Because they're going to make decisions for you if you don't make the proper decisions. Being from the islands, I know this is not a discussion you have a lot. How do you turn that around so we start having these discussions with our families?
When so I'm literally in that, I'm going through that right now because my dad passed probably like a decade ago, and we have our house in the islands, and I have other siblings, and all my parents did was just church. That's all we knew. But bad with setting things in place, life insurance and how he set up what he has left for us. Now that brought a lot of confusion. We don't know what's going on. So now we finally are in that place where, hey, you know what, we're gonna sell the house and home. But it brought a lot of confusion because. And death is something that I don't really like talking about. So that's why I always allow you to, whenever you bring that topic up, I'm like, I don't like talking about it. But it is a fact. We have to plan what happens next when we die, because we all have to face it one day. And how you set that up is very, very important. It creates confusion. It's just a mess if you don't set it up from now
The right way.
And I know a lot of couples don't like talking about it, including myself, but it's something that you have to address. So.
Yeah. And I just highly encourage you as couples. I mean, you need to have that discussion about life insurance. You need to have that discussion about doing a will or a trust, power of attorneys, all of that. It matters because something may happen one day and you want to make sure all those things are in the right place. When we first got married, I was like, all right, well, it's week one. Let's take out your life insurance policy. I'm pretty sure my husband was
like, what are you trying to kill me?
Like I know my husband that right from the beginning. But I know you realize it was a safety and security to me. It's so important. I hope you know it's a safety and security to you. It's for our kids. It's for generational wealth to come. It is so important to have those discussions. And ladies, I want to specifically talk to you about that because, 75% of women become widows. That means 3 out of 4 of us are going to become widows. Now, my prayer is that is long life, right? But some of us become widows in our 40s, 50s, 60s. These are real discussions that you need to start having. Just yesterday, I went and had a heart checkup, right? Again, I have a family history of that. Great thing. Nothing's wrong with my heart, but I still need to have those checkups because, again, I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing so that we live a long, healthy life together. Okay. A few just kind of points I wanted to make sure we got through today. Communicating openly, such an important factor. Okay. Set some goals together. We do that at the beginning of the year, some short-term and some long-term goals. And then it's my husband's responsibility, not mine, to make sure at least once a month we come back together and we see how we are tracking on those goals, right? Because it's important. We have and I hope all of you, right, have bigger and better things you're trying to do together. We knew from the beginning we wanted to build wealth. We wanted to build for our future generations together. Right. So setting those goals, you're in charge of making sure that we come back together with that. And that's part of your leading. Correct.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Decide on a budget. We talked about that. Building a foundation, like I said, cash and life insurance. Listen, the next thing I want to talk about, breaking up with the debt. You got to live on less than what you make. You got to break up with the debt. Debt I think is when couples talk about their finances and where they're struggling, this is where the problem is, right? Again, debt does happen sometimes. We bought a house last year. We're instantly wanting to furnish and buy this, and we want to add this. And all of a sudden, I think our budget is kind of getting blown. I don't know about you guys, but my grocery bill is outrageous right now. I went to Publix. There's just 3 of us in the household. It's only 3, right? And I'm going to Publix spending $500 a week on groceries. That to me seems insane, if not more, right? And so I saw that our credit cards started to creep up, right? And I know you don't like debt. I don't like debt. It is not something where we want to be in that situation at all. But this is where, when you're paying out bills every single month and 50% of your budget is going to debt, you really have to step back and look at what's going on in your budget. Tell me,
Somebody said that we're rationing eggs at this.
we are rationing. Listen, I tried to put on a chicken egg farm. That's what I went down. I'm thinking,
yeah, you know what? That's a great idea. I'm from the islands. I can manage chickens pretty good.
That's not true. So but listen, that's true story. Went into this chicken egg farm. My husband goes with me. We get these eggs. My husband comes back. We put the eggs in the fridge. He said, "Are you sure these eggs are clean? I don't know if I can eat these eggs." I was like, "We just found a farm of eggs. I don't care if they're clean. We're going to try them."
Yeah, that has no expiration date on them. I'm not eating them.
It came from the store. It has no expiration date. My husband's concerned. Talk a little bit about, as a man, you're really responsible for being the provider, right? And and again, it doesn't matter who makes what, those sort of things. When debt starts to creep up and when you start to see those things, because we had to have a conversation right before Christmas about where we were and what we were going to spend at Christmas time because we weren't going to add more debt. You kind of led that conversation. Were a little harsh with me. He cut my Christmas budget by quite a bit. So
you're trying to make me sound like some type of tyrant. I'm like I'm some type of dictator. All right, but I'm not. Right? Just for those of them
it's sexy to me, FYI. I need a man to lead with authority. So that's a sexy part of you. I do not want to get rid of. Lead with authority. So how to talk to me? How to approach this conversation?
I don't want to do all the talking. I want to throw this out to Tony and Eric and because
Tyreek, if you're still on.
Tyreek, yeah, they have some really great insights on it. So I want to open that up to them.
How about Tony? Tony, you still on? Did he get off? You might have jumped off here, babe.
No, I'm here.
Okay, great. How do you handle that, Tony? How do you handle any debt in your household, those sort of things?
So what I do is I look at, I'm not a spender at all. My first answer is no, all the time.
Lead with
it doesn't matter what it is. She's like, I want to buy water. No, that's my first answer all the time is no. Then we have to do the talking and be like, all right, let's see what we can do. But she knows my answer is always no. So I look at it and I'm like, well, this is what we're bringing in. This is what we need to pay. Now let's see what we can, if you want it like for clean, right? She's the spender in the house. I don't spend a lot. And so, I'm like, I don't have to have that conversation. Like I got to buy this $500. I don't have that conversation because I don't spend nothing over. I'll be like, nope, $100, that's the most. But with her, she likes to buy stuff. So we like, well, we got to take away from other things, right? If you want to buy this, we got to take away from other things. Her answer is always, well, I'm just going to make more. That's what she says. She says, I'm going to make more so that I can buy that. She doesn't have that, oh, well, we can't get, no. I just make more and then we can get that, then that'll slip in there. But we approach it together. We look at debt and be like, well, we need to pay this down. We need to pay these things down. And I'm more of the investor type as well. So anything that's above what we have to pay, I'm throwing it in investments because even savings to me, I'm now the rate is a little better, but I'm still like, man, I can make more in the market than I can, leaving in an account. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just not the way my mind works. So I'm always like, I'm trying to get investments. And those investments pay for the debt, right? They pay down the debt. You see what I'm saying? So anything over anything over 7%, I'm already looking at it to pay down debt. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, the 7% is the ceiling. After anything above that, I'm grabbing it and throwing it into debt. You know what I'm saying? And so we're always actively, trying to do that. But like I said, most of the time, I'm not trying to spend anything. So she has to push me in that category.
Yeah. And listen, even as a saver, I mean, I'm a saver, but I am with Colleen, and I saw, to hear you too. Listen, I'll make more. That's always my answer. I can listen. We need an extra 10,000 this month. No problem. I got this. Like, it's just, that's what rolls off of my thought process, is that I can figure out how to make more. And that, again, sometimes that's healthy. And don't get me wrong, because I could make more, but at the same point, we want a comfort level that's good for both of us, because God forbid something happened to me and I couldn't make more that next month or the month after. We want to make sure that there is no debt, so that we don't have that concern. Debt quickly steals your savings, quickly steals joy, honestly. And so you want to get out of debt as quickly as possible. So break up with debt. There are lots of programs out there that you can do in regards to that. I want to talk about credit score real quick. Credit scores are important for both spouses. This matters because, again, you need to strategize where your credit scores are in order to be able to build wealth together. There are, and again, we talked about that. We have both went through a divorce. So going through a divorce, the truth of the matter is, it's like you're fully exposed, if I can say it that way. It's almost like somebody stripped you naked and you're showing everything. Okay. And so that's what happens. I mean, you have to report all that to the courts. It's not a pretty process, and we didn't want anybody to have to go through that. And so, we both left marriages in debt. We both left marriages where our credit score basically got demolished because of going through divorces. So we both had to basically build from zero, right? And so, and it wasn't easy. I didn't get myself into that credit score overnight. It took me a couple of years. I know it took you a couple of years to get your credit score back up. He has a very high goal. And that's great. I know that's a good thing for my husband, but ultimately our credit scores mattered. When we talked about it, it's because of how we want to use our score, right? We plan on our properties being separate, meaning, and what I mean by that is that we don't want, our properties will be in an LLC and those sort of things, but we don't want everything to be used for Kristina's name or everything to be used for Jesse's names. We need to each have a good credit score so that we're able to each buy properties without the other person's income or credit score. That matters to me because it matters to you too. I know, because it's about the way the investments are going to build long-term. And if everything goes into Kristina's name, at some point I'm going to get capped. Right? If I want to buy 20 properties, there's going to be a point where my income can't support the amount of properties we're buying, and vice versa. So we needed to both have good credit scores. That's been a journey. You hated your journey, I know for sure.
I still do. It's still a journey for me.
Yeah, because you did not, you thought it could be fixed like in 90 days, and it really was a year or two process.
And that's where the open communication comes in, because these are things you have to be honest with.
Right.
So if you remember me being honest with you when we first met, I had not gotten laid off from my job. I'm like, my credit is jacked up. You sure? But I was just trying to be real.
In the dating cycle, what you would generally walk away from. Okay. I think we're on our first or second date. It wasn't far into it. And he said, listen, it's COVID, right? Everybody was getting laid off. He said, I just got laid off and my credit score is horrible because I'm still building after a divorce.
Yeah. Because I don't have, at that point, for me, I don't have time for BS. Because either you, all right, well, no problem.
You in or you out.
You know what I mean? And that was important, but I also shared my goals. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
But it's important. And what happens is that a lot of couples, they're not honest at that point, and then they hide, and then all of a sudden, well, honey, you didn't tell me your credit score is like, but it's open communication, just being honest, and you build from there.
Yeah.
You have to be honest with your spouse, honest, whether it hurts or not.
Yeah.
No is no, yes is yes. Hey, this is the situation.
Yeah.
It's either we can deal with it or not.
Yeah. And I love that you said your no's got to be your no, your yes got to be your yes. And listen, in a relationship, if you're dating, if you're thinking about dating, those sort of things, these are real conversations that you do need to have up front. You've got to ask the questions. Again, I was a financial advisor, and my husband is telling me my husband, which I knew God was telling me that, but was saying, I have no money and I have no credit. So you sure you want to be here? But as I listened to him, he had vision. As I listened to him, he was God-centered. As I listened to that focus on, and again, I was leery. We took our time, but it was definitely a red flag for me. But then what happened is his actions matched his words. And that was important to me because he did take his vision and run with it and started his company. And it went, he was a hard worker. I did not ever not see that in everyday life. So that was super important to me. Creating generational wealth is honestly the last thing we'll touch base on. All of this we're doing is not just for us. We know it is for our children's children, as the Bible says. We talk about, as we did life insurance, as we've gotten other things together in our investments and our finances, we always talk about how that's going to impact our kids. Yes, we are going to use it. We're spending our money, right? We're not going to not live a life we want to live. That's absolutely going to happen. But we need to make sure that we are leaving a legacy that is long beyond what we could have asked or thought. And so I know that's important for you to build generational wealth. Between us, we have 9 kids, right? We have 7 adopted kids. We have 2 from your first marriage. We have to leave something for them. Not everything is going to go to them. We've been clear about that. They need to work hard for some things. But we do agree that we want to leave them in a better position than our parents maybe left us. And our parents didn't leave us in bad situations. We just want it to be better, right?
Absolutely. But again, this is where your strong point comes in as in your giftings, right? As a financial advisor. Hey, let's invest here. Just like Tony, his strong point is investing. Mm-hmm. That's not my strong point though. Yeah. But doesn't mean that I don't want to learn and get better at it. Yeah. And that's where it's,
But I think one of so it's a risk, right? But we're taking this risk together. That's what I love so much. Like, it's a risk we're doing together, honey. You know what? We're jumping in. Guess what?
Hold on now. No. Let's back up a little bit. I never told you I'm comfortable with that. Back up. But
see how my eyes are very but
work towards it.
He knows there's something I'm thinking about right now. So, but we do know we have to take risks together. And guess what? As long as we're in this together, we can do anything. Right?
I like you trying to soften me up. It's not gonna work.
So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to make sure we give you a few minutes here to ask questions. If you do have questions, please feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, or you can ask in the chat and we will do that. We want to make sure that we're answering any questions you have. We're open books. I mean, we've done it the wrong way. Like I said, we've both been through divorce. We both have had money issues in the past. We both have dealt with credit score, all these things. But I feel like this has for me been amazing because there is such open communication between us, and I feel like we're going to build stronger than ever, and our kids are going to be in such a great position and to continue that legacy.
Well, there's something about growing when you're struggling together. It creates the bond. It creates, this is what I'm not going to do again. And you don't repeat the same mistakes over and over. And, as we grow in struggles, you hold each other accountable.
And then guess what? We've kind of agreed. I mean, if we miss something or we fall, we're falling together. We're going to get back up together. It's okay. But if you take no risk together, you're not going to learn. You're either going to win or you're going to learn. There is no loss here. You're going to win or you're going to learn. One of those 2 things are going to happen. And so we really hope that this has helped you guys as couples, and as we communicate, really begin to grow in your financial walk more and more. Win or learn. All right.
A question we get a lot that I'll ask, especially for those watching the replay. We get it a lot at our live events as well. In fact, when we did the Fempire event, there was a moment where a lot of the ladies had questions about their spouses, and I had to, let Anthony kind of share his thoughts on it. But what about for a lot of our ladies that are more aggressive, go-getters? They want to take those risks, they want to do those things, and they're constantly shut down by their spouse. And so they're feeling more like defeated. They're feeling like my husband doesn't trust me. He won't let me, they feel capped. They feel captive, if you'll even say it that way. And so we find ourselves praying. We find ourselves talking about communication and just those various things. But yeah, I just want to know what your thoughts are for that woman that feels defeated and feels like she can't dream with her husband.
Absolutely. And I think that is an excellent question. It is a tough question, because sometimes, we always say pray, and, but I really, the Bible says seek wisdom. And so you need to seek counsel sometimes. Okay. So a lot of times as a financial advisor, when a husband and wife are sitting in front of me, they don't agree, right? I'm the voice of reason to get the two of them on the same page. Okay. And so I would highly encourage you guys. And again, this isn't necessarily, let's go to therapy. That's not what I'm saying here. Seek counsel. Listen, we are building a financial future together. Let's go see a financial advisor or a financial coach. Let's see somebody that is an alternate third party to be able to look at our situation and help us assess better. Whenever a marriage is in trouble, what's the first thing you do? You try to go to counseling, right? You try to get somebody else to see what's going on in your marriage from a different perspective. We're in it. So sometimes we're blinded by what's going on. We can't see, we're just tunnel vision, and we can't see outside of that tunnel vision. But when a third party comes in and allows you to be able to communicate and says, hey, listen, why don't you try this? This might be an option, so on and so forth. A good financial advisor, a good person, like I said, financial coach, any of those sort of things are going to ask husband and wives some hard questions so that you can build and grow together. And they're looking at it from the outside in. They're not looking at it from an emotional perspective, which is usually where you're at. So that's what I would say, seek wisdom, seek counsel in order to overcome those things. What do you think?
I mean, absolutely. It's like what we were talking about before. It's like, Colleen was saying, you have this wife that's, she's a dreamer. She's very ambitious, and she's going after it because you guys are go-getters, right? You guys are industrious. As the Bible says, you guys are a virtuous woman. That's in your nature to go get it.
It's our goal to multiply everything.
And most, and most men, we're laid back. This is where we as men, we have to step up in that area and be like, you know what? It's not a competition, but I'm supporting my wife to get to her destination and her goal and her gifting is what she wants to do and her passion, and helping her fulfill that. But in cases, there's no communication. The wives feel like she gets no support from her man. So it's like the question, what do you do then? That's a counseling thing. You have to, hey, you know what? My marriage is in trouble because, you're just going to continue to be on just different page. And it's just going to go downhill from there. It's just going to bring a lot of frustration, a lot of stress. And you have to deal with it in a godly way. Seek counseling, as you say, godly counseling, and take it from there, step by step.
And if this is more of a communication issue, I mean, we have both been divorced, so we know the struggle of not communicating with your spouse and kind of just falling off of the ledge to say, I just can't do it anymore. And I think both of us agree we would have done things differently, right? It wasn't easy. It wasn't. It was hard decisions for both of us because we were both, you were heavily involved in church. I was heavily involved in church. This was not an easy decision or thing, but I, if I had to go back now, it would be godly counsel and wisdom would have been my first thing. And then you have to make some tough decisions from there if you can't get on the same page. Eric, I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, I just kind of tagging on to what Jesse said. And I know this may sound a little weird, but as human beings, we can be petty. So has there been a time when maybe as the wife, she didn't support what the husband was doing? Now, I'm not trying to justify that kind of behavior, but it's a reality.
Yes.
That resistance can manifest because of a past hurt. And I think that's really where the godly counsel comes in, because you need to get to the bottom of why that is. Is it fear of not having enough, like putting yourselves out there and it failing? Or is it because of an ego situation? Is it because of hurt? But getting down to the root, because we're seeing the fruit, which is the husband shutting down the wife's pursuits.
Yes.
You got to get to the bottom of that. One of the things that, in your marriage, there's certain things that you all get right. We're always striving to be better in our marriage, but there's certain things you do right. And one of the things in our marriage that I feel like we do right, is support each other in the various seasons. Like Jennifer is a go-getter, and there's never been a time where I was like, nah, because of my ego. There have been times where I'm like, nah, because you're doing too much. And I'm seeing the fruit of you doing too much. You're worn out, you're getting sick. You don't have the energy for the things that you really need to do on a day-to-day basis. And then when it's time for me to go, to go out and really go for what my dreams and aspirations are, she's there 100%. And she does the same thing. She's like, babe, are you good? Like, what's going on? If something starts not being congruent with how we normally live. So I think that's important for you to examine as a couple, like what could be the cause of this. And I know some wives do that. And you're like, I support him. I'm 100% for it. So you definitely have to get an objective voice outside of your marriage to help you work through it. And like you said, it may not be pastoral counseling or therapists. It could just be talking to another couple. It could be talking to other professionals. It could be talking to, trusted advisors to help get through to your spouse.
Yeah. That's such a good insight, Eric. I mean, again, none of us are perfect human beings. It's, I've had to learn to humble myself. You've had to learn to humble yourself. Absolutely. We've had to set our egos aside and remember that this marriage is the most important thing to God. And we really have had to make sure that that's number one. Right. Yeah. And so with that being said, I know that was really a great place to start wrapping up. Again, we thank you guys for allowing us to come on. I thank you, honey, for being open and honest, and women need to hear it and men need to hear it. Right. And just being yourself as always.
I guess we got some things to talk about right after this. Come up this live, so get ready.
And for a day of conversation, guys. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. You got a hint to me what you're going to do in the live without me knowing. So thank you for that. Yeah.
We are thankful for all of you guys, and we appreciate every last one of you on behalf of CEO Chicks, our fearless leader, Coach Colleen, who is on the call with us. Remember, we have an amazing, amazing event coming up next month. You want to make sure to get registered early. It will fill up quickly. So please, we will drop the information in the comments below. So that way you have an opportunity to be able to sign up.
They could just go to the site, Chris. Just go to the site, make sure you register for the event, use your code. I sent it in the email as well. I want to say it's CEO Chick 2023. You can email the office if you're not sure, but look at the last email regarding it. And so just grab your ticket. Shay, I hope you can come in. It's a one-day event, 10 to 4. Looks like we're going to have some amazing people coming through on the phone with this one political figure that I would love to see there. So I'm just really pressing. We're doing something different, something unique, and it's going to be really, really good. So make sure you come out.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. All right, guys. Thank you so much. You guys all have a blessed day.